Hi, hello friends and strangers. Welcome back to another 2021 wrapped video, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that made my year of 2021. For this video, I am going to talk about the mix of 2021 favorite books and books that had an impact on me last year. As much as I want to keep it at a maximum of 10 books, it was quite a challenge to cut down more books, so this list has 11 out of the 100 plus books that I read for 2021. And let's get right into it. The first book is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This copy I haven't read yet because I've read These Violent Delights via an ebook copy, so I haven't touched this copy yet, and I'm very excited because I won this from a giveaway by Emma Wang, who is the author of The Sword of Kaigen, and I'm very much thankful, and I still am. So anyway, what is this book about? It is the imaginative retelling of Romeo and Juliet set in 1920s Shanghai with rival gangs and a monster lurking within the city. Going back at my review of the book in Goodreads, it didn't give me much since I only wrote literally perfect. But I remember really loving Chloe Gong's writing, which perfectly fits the setting and the nature of the story and its Romeo and Juliet trope. Another thing I loved about this book is that there's so much tension and pining that it will leave you smiling and emotionally constipated at the same time. One more thing I loved about this book is that it leans more towards mystery and historical fiction than romance. Sure, the romance is there, but the political climate and the war for power and control is palpable and throws the whole plot on a different plane. I will need to refresh my memory by rereading this book before getting into Our Violent Ends, which I am very excited and very scared to read. Book number 2 for the books that made my year is Sagala by Tori Tadiar. Sagala is a Filipiniana fantasy story that has a gunslinging courtesan with a super protective and loving kuya / older brother. On top of that, it's their kuya and bunso relationship that had me in awe of the whole story. They had such a quirky and purely loving relationship that just tugs on my heartstrings. So Sagala has such lush world building. Granted that it's also quite short. This is the full volume of Sagala. It has lush world building and engrossing myths weaved into this Filipiniana fantasy story of politics, social class, and so much betrayals. I believe that this also had this has a potential to be a full-on series, as in like multiple volumes, but I do respect the author's decision to focus on a spin-off within the same universe instead. Book number 3 is Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. Concrete Rose is the prequel to another famous YA book, which is The Hate You Give, and it transpires 17 years before the events of The Hate You Give, and Concrete Rose follows the 17-year-old Maverick Carter who had to find a way to navigate a life of a soon-to-be father, and while still being in school and dealing dope for the King Lords to earn money. So I went in thinking that this is going to be a 5-star prediction for me, and I was definitely not disappointed. Admittedly, there were some details or events that from The Hate You Give that I may have missed, but this book still delivered and I was still able to understand everything despite forgetting some details from The Hate You Give. Concrete Rose again follows Mav, who has to own up to his responsibilities as a father at only 17 years old, taking care of a kid while being a kid yourself is definitely a tough pill to swallow. This is just one of those books that made me smile so much, just knowing how much of a character has changed and watching everything and reading it as if I was an aunt or an older cousin of Mav. This book made for a fantastic journey that I'll definitely revisit again. And if you're planning to read this book, if you haven't yet, I highly suggest the audiobook because the acting and the narration are really good. Book number 4 is one of those books that I've been shoving down people's throats whenever they ask for a graphic novel recommendation, and is our Not So Lonely Planet Travel Guide Volume 1 by Mone Sarai. This graphic novel follows this couple, Asahi and Mitsuki, who seem like total opposites, and they made a deal to travel the world so that when they get back to Japan, they are gonna get married. So as they travel from country to country, the different people, the culture, the cuisine that they encounter brings them closer together. After learning about these places, the more that they get to know about each other and themselves. So I just knew the moment that I saw this cover on NetGalley that I will definitely love this graphic novel, and I sure as hell did. This story features a soft, shy guy, Asahi, who worries a lot and wants everything organized down to the T, and a happy-go-lucky bisexual Mitsuki who adores everything about Asahi unapologetically. And it follows the beginning of their journey around the world, so I like the detail in terms of like the chapters are divided according to the countries that they visited. So the countries that they visited here were Thailand, India, and Georgia. So not knowing much about their relationship or how it started, it just adds a bit of mystery on what is to come in future volumes, and I really love that. It also features one of my favorite trope, the "oh no, there's only one bed" trope. And if you're looking for a manga that has really amazing art, so detailed, so beautiful, please pick this book up. It explores the amazing culture around the world and is so wholesome yet very chaotic gay relationship that is featured in this graphic novel. So I highly recommend it. Okay, book number 5 is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I have been raving about this book when I finished it with my husband, and just look at those tabs. So, what is The Way of Kings about, in case you don't know yet? An epic fantasy novel that is part of the Stormlight Archive series. It takes place on the continent of Roshar, and the main character in The Way of Kings is Kaladin, my babe. A soldier in a war between his people and a race called the Parshendi. So the story also closely follows the High Prince Dalinar Kholin, who is trying to figure out the origin of the conflict, and Shalan Davar, a young woman who is attempting to save her family from financial ruin. So each narrative is separate and happens concurrently, and it is a thick boy. It is a thick boy of over 1,000 pages, but it's so fucking worth it. The world is huge, and the magic system is absolutely interesting. Their currency is in spheres that have different values according to what type of gemstones and what the colors are. The way the weapons work as well is very interesting, like the sharp blade, the sharp plate, and the whole system of who gets to wield it and how. It can get confusing in the very beginning because you're thrown into this set of characters with different ethnicities while also having to understand the whole world building and magic system, the creatures lurking. But they were laid out very well. so it gets easy to get used to. So it's very understandable because it is the first book in the Stormlight Archive series. So there are a lot of things that needs to be set up for the succeeding novels. Most of the characters are also amazingly fleshed out, and they have really unique personalities and intricate backstories that makes it easy to read because it's easy to tell them apart. I had a live discussion with my husband Bran about this book. He also read it and equally loved it, to the point that he went ahead and read the sequel without having to wait for me because like I was distracted by other books as usual. So I have that discussion with him here on my channel as well. Also a reading vlog for the book. So if you're interested to watch those, I'll have the links in the description box below. And book number 6 is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a 2019 memoir of Chanel Miller, who writes about being sexually assaulted while unconscious at a Stanford frat party back in January 15, and it details the aftermath and the subsequent court case of People versus Brock Turner. So Know My Name is definitely one of the books that any review wouldn't suffice, wouldn't give it enough justice, just because of how bone-chilling and amazing it is. Even up to now, I still can't find the right words to perfectly sum up the reading experience and how this affected me as both a reader and a fellow victim. All I can say is a thank you to Chanel Miller for sharing her story, for being brave about sharing her difficult story, and it feels very special to feel seen and understood just by reading her words. She's such an amazing writer that I'm just completely blown away, and now I want to reread it even though it's triggering. It's just that an amazing of a book. It dives into so many relevant topics like surviving a sexual assault, being failed by a justice system that favors the white, and going through such a painfully wrong and long process just to get justice. It's so gut-wrenching, so please watch out for the trigger warnings before getting into this book. Book number 7 is Ace of Spades by Faridah àbíké-íyímídé. This book is set in Niveus Private Academy, where students are never less than perfect and money flows. So Chiamaka, the head girl, and Devon, a talented musician, were thrown into the spotlight when Aces, an anonymous texter, a gossip girl, were exposing Chiamaka and Devon's dark secrets. So I knew the moment that when I read the synopsis back in 2020 that this would be really good, and it did. The whole payoff was satisfying. It was great. I was riled up so much because the characters of color experienced extreme institutionalized racism, gaslighting, threats, and manipulation. So it is pretty accurate to describe this book as Get Out meets Gossip Girl, because it is. Book number 8 is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This book is about this cafe where they serve more than brewed coffee. So this coffee shop also offers its customers a unique experience, which is to get a chance to travel back in time just by sitting in a specific chair and try to go back to the present before the coffee gets cold. So whatever it is that they want to do in the past, if there's someone they would like to meet, to see, to talk to, they have to do that before the coffee gets cold. So I remember reading the very first book and really loving it. It made me tear up, and it set the series in terms of the mechanics of how time travel works in this cafe. I think it's safe to say that I may have loved this book more than the first one, and that's saying a lot because I really loved the first book. There is fantastic characterization in this book. There are also emotional and interconnected stories of love, longing, regret, forgiveness, and acceptance. So I also love how each character had their own reasons and was each a victim of circumstances and ill faith that brought them to this cafe and to try to mend some things that they can by going back to the past. If you haven't read this book yet or the first book, please pick this book up and ready your tissues. I'm not gonna promise that you're gonna be bawling at the end of this book or while reading it, but it will definitely make you emotional. So there may be some stories that may be relevant to you. I highly recommend this series. Both of the books had such an emotional ride, so please get ready for that if you're gonna pick up this book. Book number 9 is The Wolf of Oren-Yaro by K.S. Villoso. This book follows the story of bitch queen Talian of Jinsayang, the first woman to ever sit on the dragon throne, and is married to their rival Ikisar's heir, which is Rael. Fuck you, Rael. However, that didn't work out since Rael left on the night of their coronation. So after receiving a message from her estranged husband for a secret meeting, she eagerly sets off to meet him, only to find herself in a web of traps, assassination attempt, and people who doubt her capabilities as the queen. This book is so well written. The world is immersive and gripping. The characters were easy to distinguish and had flaws and strengths that you see shine through from every page. It is, again, one of those books wherein the characters really drive the plot. And the more that I read this, the more that I was seeing everything through Talian's eyes, because I was starting to grow untrusting of the people that she was meeting. So I was not trusting of anyone. I had my guard up because I know that a lot of people are out there to bring her down. If you're someone who hasn't read fantasy, don't read much epic fantasy, you don't need to be afraid, intimidated, or overwhelmed to get into The Wolf of Oren-Yaro. So if you're looking for a fantasy book, it's actually very easy to get into. You don't need much experience with the fantasy genre, it's very accessible. If you're also looking for a fantasy book that is heavily inspired by Filipino myths, folklore, and you should get right into The Wolf of Oren-Yaro. So I feel like I have to reread the first book before getting into the next book, which is The Ikisar Falcon. I haven't bought the book yet because it's always not in stock whenever I try to check it, and I don't have the money whenever it's in stock. So okay, so the 10th book on my list is The Girl and the Ghost by Hanna Alkaf. The Girl and the Ghost follows this unlikely and unconventional friendship between Sarai and Pink. Pink is this ghostly Pelicit companion which Sarai got from her grandmother. So Pink was used to mischiefs and dark stuff concocted by Saraya's grandmother, and Saraya was slowly discovering Pink's dark side. So I absolutely loved how the book dived into the different kinds of friendship and how they can be good but also unhealthy for the people involved. So it also tackles the family relationships and how the past can ultimately affect the present. The writing, don't even get me started. It is really good. It is fantastic. characters were well written, and I found this quite fast-paced as well, so it's quick and easy to get through. If you're planning to read The Girl and the Ghost, which you should, you have to get ready for the roller coaster ride of emotions. So good luck. And the last, but definitely not the least, I feel like if you've watched my previous videos for the last 2 months, you'll already know what this is. And it's Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao. I hope you're not surprised. I'm no longer surprised that this is still my favorite book of 2021. What is this book about? Just in case you don't know, it is in a world where giant Chinese myth inspired war machines called chrysalises, powered by qi from male and female pilot, is needed to fight the aliens beyond the Great Wall. And our main girl, Zetian, is off to get revenge on the male pilot who consequently killed her older sister that served as a concubine for his war machine, his chrysalis. The plot initially is centered around Zetian's thirst for revenge on the chrysalis pilot that killed her sister, who was a concubine for this said pilot. But that happened really, really early on in the book, so you'll be left at the edge of your seat the whole time, since there will be a lot of things to happen. And I think one of the things that I love about the story is how the more that it progressed, the more unhinged and power-hungry our main bitch, Zetian, gets, and I absolutely fell in love with that. I love me some unhinged character, no matter how unreliable or annoying they can be at times. Another thing that I loved about this book is that while on the surface it sounds like a revenge story for Zetian, but it was way more than that. There are bigger things that come into play, like this confining gender roles that this society has, which is mostly patriarchal, and it plays a huge part in almost every aspect of the book. How the whole piloting system was established, how that works. Another thing that I really loved about this book is the found family aspect, as well as a polyamorous relationship that dove into the emotional part of it rather than the sexual aspect of polyamory. There are twists after twists up to the very last page of the book, so get ready for that if you're planning to read this. For the sequel, one of the things that I'm wishing to see and get are Shimin and Iju's chapters / point of views, just to spice it up even more and be able to give the readers a glimpse on how they think and feel, and not just from Zetian's point of view. So very excited for that. I don't know when it's gonna be released, but when it does, I'm gonna inhale it immediately. So, and those are the 11 books that made my year of 2021. There are definitely other books that I also loved and made an impact on me, but I didn't want to make this video so long that it would just drag on, so I just chose the books that made really huge impact on me. So I hope you enjoy this video. I don't know yet if I'm going to be posting my next 2021 wrapped video, even though it's already the 3rd week of February by the time that this comes out, maybe. Again, thank you for watching, friends and strangers. I will see you again on my next video. Bye bye.